Hello, thank you for joining me. Welcome to the fourth annual Bookstan. Sadly, this one will have to happen somewhat remotely. My name is John Freeman. It is my
predstavljanju knjige Labirint
great pleasure
autora
to
Burhana
this
SONMEZ-a.
conversation
Burhan SONMEZ
today.
inače je turski
Burnham
autor koji je iz
SONMEZ.
političkih razloga emigrirao i
Burnham was
nastanio se
born
u
in central
u
Anatolia,
Velikoj Britaniji gdje zapravo sada
1865,
živi na relaciji
and he
Cambridge
grew up speaking
Istanbul.
Kurdish
Inače objavio je 4 romana od kojih su najpoznatiji
and
Istanbul,
later moved to
Istanbul i
Istanbul,
Labirint,
where he
a djela
studied
su mu prevedene na više od 40 jezika.
had
Sa
to leave
Burhanom
that
SONMEZ-om razgovarat će John Freeman, inače autor i književni kritičar i jedan veliki prijatelj Bookstana. I ovim putem razgovarat će sa autorom Burhanom SONMEZ-om. Nadam se da ćete uživati u ovome razgovoru, a nakon njega slijedi predstavljanje knjige Džemaludina Latića, Lice jedne žene. Razgovor s njim vodit će Kristina Ljevak. Uživajte.
As I mentioned, Istanbul, which is almost a poem about the city of Istanbul, in which 4 prisoners are awaiting their interrogation and are keeping each other company by telling stories about life underground, which mirrors life above ground. And the book that is just out in Bosnian, thanks to Buy Book, Labirint, which is an exquisite novel about a 28-year-old jazz performer who wakes up without his memory in Istanbul and reacquaints himself with his life. And over the course of the book, we get to know his city, the friends who were once his friends, and the siblings, and the place he actually used to call home. Without further ado, please join me remotely, those who are watching and those who are streaming on YouTube, in welcoming Burnham SONMEZ.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
It's really great to be in conversation with you. Istanbul is one of my favorite cities, and I want to ask you a little bit about your new book, Labirint. What does it mean to put a man in the center of Istanbul and to take away his memory? As we were talking before this conversation began, we were speaking about everyone who goes to Istanbul has his or her their own Istanbul. But what does it mean to exist in a city without a past?
Yeah. The memory is, the center of novel, maybe. Every novelist play with it or build up their stories around memory. When I started to write novels, I realized it very late. After my second novel published, I realized that I've been just dealing with the past of my heroes, protagonists. In my second novel and third novel, Istanbul, I played with the value, with the importance of the memory and how it enlightens our future, how we carry it like a flashlight in our brain, and we look forward. We are able to see the future thanks to our past. But then I started to think about the recent political and social developments and changes in Istanbul and also around the world. Maybe we are all experiencing similar problems, or issues, or new aspects of social cultural lives. Our past is being reshaped or destroyed or being stolen from us by not only by politicians, maybe by social media, companies and similar organizations. In this chaotic society and in this kind of big cities, as simple citizens, ordinary individuals, are we aware of everything that's going on around us? When we say, I'm a free man, okay, I know, John, you're a free man. When we say, I'm a free man, how true it is. I was born, it was not my decision. I went to primary school, I didn't pick it up. I went to university, more or less, okay, I was aware of it. Then I find a job, then I live a life, then I die. Now, how much I become, free, when I've done everything. The thing now, this shirt is, I like this color. Maybe this is the fashion of this year. I think that I like it, but the likeness is something social. And then I thought about the social part of the memory. The individual memory dominated or shaped or reshaped by the social memory, and the social memory comes through institutions, through powers. All those big establishment or system has got a simple feature: a person, a man, an ordinary citizen, like Boratin. I try to understand in the novel of Labirint what kind of problem his generation and he himself is facing at the moment. I try to understand and to reveal it through this book.
There's a great conversation that Boratin, who's, as I mentioned, a jazz musician, the reason he's lost his memory, he's jumped off the Bosphorus Bridge after a car accident in what appears to have been a suicide attempt. And as the novel goes on, he tries to understand why he would have tried to do this, whether he was in fact sad and what the source of his sadness was. And he gets to know people who used to know him or did know him, as well as some new friends and women he meets out at restaurants. And one of them says to him, there's a difference between the past and history. While everyone is trying to give you a past, what they're actually trying to give you is a history. In the former, everything is alive. In the latter, it's dead. And I wonder if you could talk about that in the context of being a writer who grew up speaking Kurdish and Turkish, and who writes with both of those languages in your text. Is there some kind of erasure that Boratin is not representative of, but maybe looking at, that happens in Istanbul for people with a Kurdish past?
In my previous novels, I especially highlighted that cultural aspect of the environment or the personality of my heroes, mentioning Kurdish issue and other aspect of our societal life here. But in this book, I especially avoided that part because I wanted to have a protagonist, a naked man, naked from everything because he lost his memory. Nothing has got a major importance for him anymore. In a typical novel or movie, we would see a hero who is going after his past, trying to learn and find out everything, and in the end, he manages, to know the reason why he tried to kill himself. But in this novel, I said, oh no, maybe some people wouldn't take that part. Maybe they will just leave the past in the past. When we say the past is important for us, personally, I would say that for myself. But we know that the past is mainly the field that we forgot and we want to forget. The thing we remember only maybe 5% or 10% of the past, and the things also we remember from the past partly or maybe mainly the thing that we feel ashamed of. You say, oh, I wish I haven't done that. I wish I did this, that kind of things. The memory comes with two feelings. One is regret, the other one is longing. And my hero is between those two feelings, regret or longing. The cultural and political aspect is obvious for myself and for people like me in Turkey. I was born in a small Kurdish village, and I studied in the primary school learning Turkish. And the first thing we learned, or we were told, that we were not Kurd, we were Turk, actually. I try to understand and to rationalize this. Okay, my mom speaks Kurdish, my father speaks Kurdish, everybody in the village speaks Kurdish, but we are not Kurd. Okay, there must be a logic. But if you are very little, you cannot judge this. You just obey this. You say, okay, I'm Turk. And then without realizing it, you are growing with two different identities. Sometimes it depends the time and the society. Those two cultures clash each other, but sometimes they merge, they combine, and they create something new. When I met Yaşar Kemal, we just talked about him together. Turkey's, let's say, biggest novelist, passed away a few years ago. He called me up. He said, "Come and see me." I went, and he told me two things. He said, "Look, we have something in common. Don't think that it's a disadvantage. It's advantage." He said, "We are Kurdish, but we write in Turkish. But we write in Turkish with the knowledge or with the sense of Kurdish. That's why our language is different. That's why different people get a different taste from our pen, from our books. You should understand that this is an advantage for you." Then I realized, I said, yes, you get so many cultural treasure, and if you like, you can turn them into a good, flashlight to bright your future.
This, speaking of light, this is a very moonlit book. It's a nighttime book. It's a book that takes place in bars and jazz clubs and in the murk of lost memories. Reading it again, I was struck by how much I missed nightlife. And I don't mean, dance clubs. I mean, being out amongst people in the nighttime. And I wanted to ask you, I know it's a work of fiction, it's not reportage, but if you could speak a bit about the Turkish jazz scene, if one exists, or whether you made it up for this book, because either way, it's lovely to be drawn into it slowly through Boratin's story.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this up. And the night, the Book of the Night. In the original Turkish publication, the cover of the book is dark blue. And also in the story, in some parts, I deliberately used the word indigo blue. Because Istanbul, every city has got different colors. And Istanbul for me is indigo blue. I wanted to have that sense in the novel, because that was the feeling of my hero. That was the time that he jumped off from the Bosphorus at the middle of the night, when the whole city was glittering with the street lights, the lights in the houses, but the whole city was covered with a dark blue or indigo blue sky, and he just left this life. He wanted to end his life. And I think, that's my feeling, certain kind of musics has got that color too, especially jazz music or blues. And in Turkey, maybe we can say arabesque music, and we call Turkish art music, historical Turkish music. That kind of music always give me that color, the night color. You are very much right, because I took different colors, the name of the colors when describing certain parts. And I tried to certain paragraphs in different colors, using, for example, pink or purple or blue. And when I written all those paragraphs with different colors, I've seen that paragraph totally changes with the color, just with the sense of that color. So the sense of the city also changes. I think in this book of Labirint, I wanted to have a dark blue or indigo blue city.
Yeah, sorry, I labeled him. He's a blues singer. He's not a jazz singer, and there's a big difference, both in sound and in quality. But rereading the book, it reminded me a lot of a novel I just also recently reread, The Stranger by Camus.
Yes.
And the character Mersol in The Stranger is sort of pastless, you know. If you haven't reread The Stranger, anyone listening, or Camus was doing a lot with color in that book.
Yes.
The first half of the book before the trial is just saturated in different colors, and I guess I want to talk to you a little bit about the construction of the book, because Istanbul is it's a sort of series of linked tales. Canterbury Tales, or like
Decameron.
Yeah, it's a round robin, whereas Labyrinth kind of circles inward, and you, in addition to color, you bring up clocks throughout the book, and mirrors, and I wonder if you can talk about the gears of the book and how it moves, because it's very enchanting, but also simultaneously mysterious. And as a reader, there's some cogs that are clicking, and I wonder if you want to reveal how you did that.
Yeah. In this book, I wanted to have the sound of a clock ticking always, behind. When I was writing this novel, like the protagonist in one chapter, he takes a clock and open the bag and take everything out. I've done the same thing. I bought so many clocks and brought them home. I opened them and I put them in different orders on my big table. And my wife always would come around. She would say, "What are you doing? Are you writing a novel or changing your profession?" But working although before that, I didn't have any knowledge of how clocks work. But then I started to learn or to search about it and the history of clocks and the way they work, and in the past and now. Because not mentioning maybe this part of things in the novel, it was always behind my mind. You have so many things behind your mind and so many things on your table. You don't tell about those in your novel to your readers, but you want the readers feel it, because you want to transmit a feeling, not the knowledge, or not. We are not here to give lesson or to teach something. The novel is the main thing to create a common sense or to transfer feelings to other people. Of course, you try to transfer some feelings and people get different feelings from you. That's why some people say writer is dead after the book published, because the reader just see the book, and the real thing they speak to is the book itself. That's right. But still, writers enjoy that part of writing, having so many things in mind and in the study, and put them in secret words. When I say blue, maybe I was listening some interesting blues song and also listening the sound of a clock, but I just said, okay, indigo blue. And by the design or the order of the words in a certain sentences, maybe I got that sound on those sentences. And in the end, when the novel completed, you know that you got so many things in it. It's not just a simple story.
What's your own personal feeling about identity and the mind and its durability? I ask this because at certain points within it, Labyrinth reads to some small degree like a novel about post-traumatic stress. The past comes lurching out of the past and tackles almost Boratine, the main character. And in other moments, when he contemplates his mind, he contemplates the machinery of his mind and his own reflection, he begins to edge towards what can only be called madness. Do you think the mind is something we observe at our own peril?
I don't know whether I have a proper answer to this question, or anybody has, a right answer. But I think we are trying to find an answer for this question. It's very important. When I write, or when we write, we have things, identity, mind, memory, and then when we deal with those kind of things, I think a writer is trying to understand himself or herself by writing a novel. When I finish a novel, then I see some part of myself that I haven't realized before. That's not exaggeration, that's the truth. I don't remember who said that, when someone is writing a book, a novel, he or she is on the couch of a psychoanalyst. Because we are bringing everything that we've been through since we were born. And we are trying to describe them, to understand them, and to give them a shape in order to be understood. I think a novel, especially this one, for me, kind of I cannot say, of course, it's biographical, but partly later I realized it gets some elements from my life and from the life of some people that I know, because I've been through a similar thing, kind of accident, like a dead man then came back to life, then been through the post-traumatic, that process and long treatments. And after so many years, you say, okay, I passed that difficult and horrible time, but some of the years pass again, and then you realize that you never leave anything behind. You always leave everything at the same time. When you were 5 years old, or 20 years old, or 30 years old, they are all with you at the same time. And at some point, we can call them reminiscence bump. We have so many things in our brain, but when we go to bed at night, we remember certain things. Why we remember those things that not other things? How it comes, we don't know. But they say maybe there is a reminiscence bump. So many things in our brain, but when we touch a surface, sometimes we feel a bump. There's a reason that it's bumpy. Then novel deals with it, because it's worth dealing with it.
Istanbul, one of my favorite passages. Is about sort of what is underneath the ground. I'm just going to read it briefly, but it begins, I looked at the opposite wall. It was covered with scratches and blood stains. The plaster had cracked and peeled off in several places. There was graffiti written, who knows when, distributed randomly throughout the cell. Human honor, said one message. One day, definitely, said another. Why pain, said yet another. Why pain? That was what everyone who came here thought the most. When pain divided the world the same way it divided the mind, people thought of this place, while the Istanbul above was the painless location. And obviously, you're writing about prisons as an actual place, but as a metaphorical place, where certain things and bodies are put, and the way that creates opposite qualities of the above ground world, whether or not that above ground world holds those properties. And I wonder to ask you one more question about the subconscious, because this book is dealing in that to some degree. are there things that we bury in our mind away from memory in order to exist in the present tense? And what does Booran gain by losing those things?
Yeah, I thought about two thinkers or historical personalities when I was writing those two books. One was philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. You know, he says the main meaning of life is pain. We are here to, to feel pain. Interval that we feel happiness in pain is a temporary feeling, he says. Okay, it's very pessimistic view of life, because I call myself very optimistic, maybe too optimistic myself. But still, I value that kind of aspect of philosophy, you know. And the other quote is from Iranian epic writer Ferdowsi. And Ferdowsi says, and I use this part in Labirint, in one of the songs, lyrics that's written by Booran. Ferdowsi says this about 1,000 years ago in Persian. When I came to this world, they didn't ask me. If they asked me, maybe I wouldn't want to come here. When I die, they will not ask me. If they ask me, maybe I wouldn't like to die. And I'm between those two points. That's the life, he says. That's the subconscious, you know. Some part of philosophy always says there is only one issue in philosophy, the death. Even the philosophers don't use that word at all. Still, they write about death. Maybe same is applicable with the novel as well. Even we write about joyful things, about love, about endless happiness. At the subconscious, we are trying to run away from death, you know. Especially with William Blake's The Song of Innocence. You know. I like that feeling, having or enjoying the happiness, trying to run away from the death. But in the end, death is running faster than us. We know that in different ways, not only at the graveyard. During a simple day of life, we experience so many different pains. You know, pain of love, pain of hunger, pain of unemployment. So many things break our heart and also break our lives. And all maybe those kind of pains also the messengers of death itself, because the death comes before the day of death itself with different messages. And novel mainly deal with those kind of things.
There's also comedy in this novel in a light but pleasing way, partially born out of Booran's lack of memory. He is walked home by a woman when he drinks too much, and she goes to kiss him, and he's completely baffled as to what's happening. And I wonder if you had fun trying to imagine what things you might forget. I think he was just confused as to what was happening.
Yeah.
And and she has to very gently talk him through what is actually going to be a very nice experience for him. What other things did you try to imagine having to relearn or experience for the first time?
I think laughter is a great weapon for us to manage, survive in this world. When I was in one of those torture centers, like described in Istanbul, I was so young, university student, I remember. They come and take you to torture center, torture room. But I tell you something, I remember people on those cells who are waiting for their turn to be taken away, always laughing, always trying to tell funny jokes to each other. And when we meet with friends, we were together there, we always tell each other funny stories about that bad and very painful experience. Then you realize that it's not just a game, that's a real, not a weapon, let's say, the real beauty of life, you know, to manage to understand and to go through that dark labyrinth. Otherwise, you have to just kill himself or yourself. Okay, life is bad. Everything is just described by pain, and you have no good option. Okay, then die. No, there is always a good option. There is always a hope. There is a better future, a better tomorrow. You know, we have to understand this. And the laughter, when you are in the middle of pain, is a great sign of that optimism and hope, I think. And I try to carry this in my books.
Is that why your books are flow the way they do? You know, I've only been able to read the ones published in English, but there is a feeling in a Burnham SONMEZ novel that you might begin in one place in a chapter, and then halfway through, someone will start telling a story or a fable, or maybe a joke, and then you'll wind up somewhere else. And so there is they're structured like Russian dolls or labyrinths, you know, where or rings in Homer, you know, where returning home, Odysseus is discovered by the nurse who's washing his body and sees a scar that was on his leg that she recognizes from a child, which starts a long flashback.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if those linkages are not just literary, but real for you, in the sense that, you know, in addition to using absurdity to your own advantage for sanity, embracing absurdity and turning it into a joke, if telling stories within stories is a way of breathing to you.
I think you are right. Even in my first two books, I used that pattern, you know, more visibly. A story within a story, like, as you said, in Odyssey or Arabian Nights, or like Decameron or Canterbury Tales. So many stories told at the same time, and in the end, they all built a single body of a single story. I like, and I always wanted to use that form in modern body of novel, because that's my feeling. Maybe it was, we took it from another philosopher, Husserl. He says, one thing can be understood by other thing. When you look at something else too. Then you will see the link or the opposition between them, and then you will understand them better. Look at a mirror. You won't see yourself. You will see the other self of your personality, because you are not only a single person. So when I'm telling a story of some person or some group, then suddenly it's being cut off by some other stories. Maybe it is brighter or darker. We don't know. It depends on the plot. When we walk in a dark street, we shouldn't think that all streets are dark. Maybe on the side street there is light, or maybe in a street that lit very much. We should always know that there are some dark streets that people live in, and people suffer, and people need help.
I'm going to ask you one final question, and then anyone who's listening can type in the chat box with questions they might have. But because this festival is set in Sarajevo, and your books, the ones I've read, are deeply born out of and conjure your own Istanbul, thinking of one thing always being explainable or relatable to another thing so that you can understand. I wonder, as a traveler and as a writer published in 30 languages, or at least 30, if you have, while promoting your books, felt sympathies with another city that surprised you, that's felt like a kind of sister or brother or cousin to Istanbul.
A specific one, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Specific or just general. I guess more specific.
Okay. There are some cities I felt this, but the city of Sarajevo, I haven't been there, but I felt it a lot through the novel of Ivo Andrić. I read his novels and I got the sense of the city and the region, because they've got also a common history with Istanbul through Ottoman Empire. And at some point, even I wanted to copy a novel of Ivo Andrić, to write the same book for Istanbul. But then, of course, I changed my mind. I said, okay, no, it's not manageable. Yes, I think Sarajevo, I would say that.
One of the guests of the festival this year, who I dearly regret not being able to see, SONMEZ Medinovic, has a new book out of stories, one of which is in the current issue of the magazine I edit. And I wanted to ask you, as I move to this question from one of the listeners, what happens to love when memory goes? I'm talking intimate love between a couple, or a brother and a sister. In the case of your book, does love depend on deep love? Does it depend on memory, or do you think it can persist without? Because in Medinovic's book, he writes of taking care of his wife after she's had a stroke and has lost some of her memory and a lot of her language. And the story of part of that book is rebuilding their shared memories. And I wonder what you think about love and memory.
I think love is like art, like poetry, like novels. They don't have a single form. And love is possible in endless ways. Dante wrote Divine Commedia for Beatrice. He saw only a couple of times, and she died before age of 20. And then he spent all his life to write a book for her, and even they didn't have a contact at all. That's why a way of life, a way of love. I think love can be built on memory, or at the same time on dreams. We have the treasure of memory to share with our partners, or the dreams for the future, the dreams that we haven't achieved yet, the dreams that we have kept for some other person to make it together. Maybe that person is not in our life yet.
That's a really beautiful idea. One of the listeners asks, speaking of dreams, maybe we can move briefly to nightmares. But the question is how to manage the dystopia that we're in currently. How do you manage it day to day, metaphysically, psychically, habitually?
Yeah, I think dystopia is something real. It is something drew great people to death, like Walter Benjamin. In the end, he had to commit suicide to run away from Nazis. or like Stefan Zweig and his wife. For myself, I think in personal life, I can say in every decade, I witnessed a different kind of dystopia. When I was a teenager in Turkey, we had civil war. When I was a student at the university, it was a time of military coup. And about 1 million people were arrested and tortured. When I became a lawyer, a human rights lawyer, it was the peak time of Kurdish civil war. Apart from fighting parts, 17,000 civilians were killed on the street. And I was a lawyer here. And then the following decade, I became an exile, a political exile in the UK. And now we are in a world that in every country has got a similar fire of racism and intolerance and policies against freedom. How can we manage to overcome this? I think here we need history, we need memory. Our ancestors, previous generations, been through similar things, and now we are here. It's our job and it's our time to try create a better future. I think it's also, this is not a political task. I think it's an ethical, not obligation, okay, ethical feeling that we need to carry for ourselves and for other people. I'm not hungry at the moment. I have something at home to eat, but I know that so many people are hungry at the moment. According to UNESCO numbers, in this world, every night, nearly 1 billion people go to bed hungry. 1 billion people tonight is sleeping with empty stomach. That's my responsibility. I cannot close my eyes. I have to do something with my words or with my talks or with my actions. If I do this, then I believe that, okay, a better future is possible because I do something. And then I feel that there are so many people like me in this world. You are in the United States. I am in Istanbul or in Cambridge. And I know so many people in Bosnia, in other parts of the world. There are cruel people, there are evil stuff being done, but also good people and positively working people around. I believe in this.
Oh, God, I hope someone creates a transcript of this. I would love to read that answer again once a day. Thank you for your question. Briefly, coming to events like this, where we can share our concern and our love of the ability to shine lights into the darkness with language, and to, without believing we alone can change something, through our small actions and through telling stories and getting together and listening to stories, that we can alter the fabric of the world just a little bit to make it more decent, while remembering all the things that Burnham just spoke about, the incendiary places where freedom is truly denied, the very terrible places where people are hungry and living in states of what can only be called anguish. I think those are good things to remember when so much of our culture is screening pornographies of pain, or voluptuous fantasies of dystopian wreck, when in fact I can walk outside my apartment here in New York and be unhassled and live with a degree of freedom that if I were to watch my media too much, I would think maybe I wouldn't. So I think these gatherings we have are very important as a calibrating force, as a redefining space for what collective means and what within that collective we pay attention to and value. We've run up to 45 minutes, and I know these Zoom calls are probably happening one after another. So please let me thank the lovely people in the interpretation booth, and everyone at BuyBook and Bookstan, Layla and Dahmer and everyone for putting this together. I dearly wish I was there because I love Sarajevo and I love this festival, but also I was looking forward very much to meeting you in the person, Burnham. But such was not the case to happen this year, but hopefully in another year we can get together in Sarajevo or Cambridge or Timisoara or any number of the cities where you seem to have just been there right before me.
Thank you, John. And I really wanted to be in Sarajevo today, but due to pandemic, unfortunately, I couldn't manage it. But let's say fingers crossed that we will manage it someday and in a very soon future. I'd like to thank you personally. You are a great example of literary and also intellectual productivity in this life. That's a great example for everyone, I believe. And also I'd like to thank all friends, everyone in Sarajevo. I hope and I wish we will meet in person in near future.
Yeah, we both miss you, everyone there, all the volunteers, Amelia, Amira, Ivana, everyone. Thank you so much. And I'm going to click the leave button and this will end suddenly. But if you're listening or if you're in Sarajevo, wander over to BuyBook and do pick this up. It's a beautiful book. It doesn't look like this. It has a different cover in Bosnian, and it will really take you someplace else inward, full of indigo nights and wonderful music. So congratulations, Burnham, on another wonderful novel, and